You can be seated. How's everybody doing today? I am in a great mood, which we'll see how that goes. But anyway, hey, I want to welcome all those online, whether it be Facebook or through our app. We are so glad you joined us also. We believe, and we started this church because we believe church should be relevant, simple, and real. And we are so glad you're here today. And today, I want to talk to you about something very personal to me, something I am in love with, and it is Oreos. Okay? Yes. Who just wooed? I want to see that. Yeah. Thank you, Heather. Okay. Who loves Oreos and Jesus? All right. Yeah. All right. We got a few guys. Yeah. I love Oreos. That actually is the problem, and I can't eat them anymore, unfortunately, because I loved them too much. But anyway, I went to the store this week, and I went to Walmart, and I went down the aisle of the snack aisle, the cookie aisle, the heavenly, godly, wonderful Jesus-atoned aisle. Okay. And I bought Oreos. And I don't know about you, but I grew up with Oreos, and Oreos have progressed as I've gotten older, because when I was younger, all we had was the original Oreo. Now listen, if you ever give me these, okay, I will look at you and say thank you and just realize you don't know me that well, okay? It'll be okay. Like, we'll still be friends, okay? It'll be okay, but I will just know that you do not know that what is real is right here, okay? Who knows what this is? Double stuff, okay? And that's what you do. You doubly stuff yourself, and it's terrible for you. But anyway, no, these are like heaven wrapped in chocolate cookies, okay? I love this. These are amazing. But if you go to Walmart, they have something like, man, I think the angel Gabriel gave these to humanity. I'm not sure what happened, but they have what are called mega stuff, okay? This is for the people that want to go see Jesus early, okay? Like, you eat enough of these and you're going to go see him early, all right? That's how these things work. I love these mega stuff Oreos. I can't eat them, and it's probably not good for me to hold it anymore, but these are amazing, amazing little drops from heaven. But as I was there, I noticed something else in the same aisle of the Oreos. I noticed something that like shook my core foundation, that really disturbed my soul as a Christian. They actually have these things called Oreo Thins. Yeah, have you seen this hideous, heinous monstrosity towards humanity? I mean, I think like they were at the factory and they ran out of cream, and they're like, what do we do? And they're like, just slap the cookies together. Americans are stupid. They'll eat them anyway. I mean, I think that's what happened. I don't get it. Because listen, can we just be honest? The cream, the filling, that's the best part. And if you don't believe that, we're going to try to get you saved today, okay? Because you obviously don't know Jesus, all right? These are terrible. You know what these remind me of? And I love my Catholic brothers and sisters, but you ever eaten one of those wafers that they give during communion time? That's what this reminds me of. It's like just, anyway. There's these. And I was sitting there, and here's where I want to go today. I was sitting there thinking, I'm in Walmart, and everybody can choose whatever they want. That they have these different options. You can go thin, you can go regular, you can go double, or you can go mega stuff. And obviously, there's enough people that continue to buy the thin ones when they can buy the mega stuff. And I thought, you know what? Our walk with God is so much like that. There's a lot of Christians who walk through life. And if you're here today and you say, yeah, I'm a Christian, okay, here's what I know. You have the same options as everybody else does. You have the same God. You have the same opportunities. You've got the same situation for the most part. You've got the same economic climate or whatever. And yet some of us as Christians, we continue to choose the anemic, the frail, the thin, the lacking cream and goodness of life, Oreos. When John 10:10 says, I love this verse, it's one of my favorite verses. Jesus says, I've come to give you life. Love that. That'll preach, won't it? Like life. I've come to give you life, and life to the mega stuff. Okay? That's the OIV, the Oreo International Version. But anyway, that's my version. All right? But no, he says, I've come to give you life, and life to the full. And yet, I see it all the time. I've had it in seasons in my life where I'm making choices. It's my choices that limit how much I enjoy life. Because I did some research. You can eat 4 of these, and it equates to 2 of these. So you can eat 4 garbage pieces of nothing and hate it, or you can enjoy 2 of these and go see Jesus quicker, all right? So today, what I want to talk about is an aspect of the Christian life that on its surface, you can choose it. We all have the same options. We all have the same choices to either engage in how God's called us to live and live that life to the full, life that is just amazing, that is full of life, full of blessing, full of all the stuff God's created us for. Or we can choose a life that is anemic and messed up and lacking. And so as we continue this series called The Gospel, and we called it that because I believe that the gospel is what changes us. That as you read Scripture, Jesus continually points us back to the gospel. Paul continually points, even Christians, back to the gospel because we forget it, we miss it, we move past it when we really just need to sit with it. And every single week for the next several weeks, we've got a letter of the word gospel. We're going to line up with what we want to say. And last week was week 2, and we talked about O for others. And Pastor Brad talked about this loser believer lifestyle, this lifestyle that you can live in such a way where you're a believer, yeah, but it's just not what you meant. It's the same thing as the Oreos. And today, I want to go to S, and I want to talk about service. Now, when I say that, nobody's like, yes, I was thinking I don't serve enough, and I have too much time, money, and talent in my hands. Yes, this is going to be a great sermon. Nobody thinks that. Nobody thinks that because of how you view how God made you. For many Christians, and we talked about this 2 weeks ago, it's a have to, not a get to. It's a choice that we make. And I hope by the end of it you see that, you know what? When we serve ourselves, it's as if we're picking up a thin, lacking, always wishing there was more cookie. But when we serve others, there's something crazy in God's economy. God's backwards, messed up, upside down economy that somehow that when we serve other people that we actually walk away more full. And so if you've got a Bible, I want to encourage you to turn and open it up to Luke chapter 10. We're going to pick up a story that you may or may not have heard. It's the story of the Good Samaritan. And in this story, it actually is a story within a story because it starts with a lawyer who asked Jesus about eternity, asking about heaven. What do I do to get eternal life? And that's at the core of it. That's one of our central questions that we ask as a church, that we ask as human beings. Where am I going to go? Because 10 out of 10 people die. Okay, so someday there's going to be a second life. There's going to be this next phase, and he's asking this. And the lawyer's asking him, and he says, listen, what do I do? And Jesus turns it on his head and says, what do you think? And the guy spouts off the golden rule. He says, listen, love God and love others. Do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. Love God, love others. And that's kind of what happens. And he says that. And Jesus says, cool, good. Love your neighbor. And we're going to pick up the story in 2 seconds here. But before I jump into it, I want to say one more thing real quickly. And this is one of the things that we talk about River Lake constantly, is I believe that their story, the stories in the scriptures, the stories in the pages is our stories. That it's not just something that we read and we go, oh, that was really, really helpful, but that we can read and go, that's me. And so as we read today, I want to encourage you to do something. I want to encourage you to find yourself in the story. I want to encourage you to say, listen, that's who I am. Because there's 4 different characters. There's the lawyer, there's the priest and the Levite, there's the Samaritan, and then there's Jesus. And just so we're clear, you're not Jesus, okay? So if you ever read the story like, I think I'm the Jesus character, wrong, okay? Yeah, you failed the test, all right? So as we're reading it, you're not him, all right? So we're going to pick up the story. Jesus has told him, hey, love God. He said, love God, love others. Jesus said, that's cool, serve your neighbor. And here's where we're going to pick up the story. Luke chapter 10, verse 29. But he, meaning the lawyer, wanted to justify himself. So he asked, who is my neighbor? Now, it's so important. Because the lawyer he would have been high up in the community. He would have probably been a good person. He knew the law, and we think of law like governmental law, but Israel had law combined in with both spiritual and relational and how it relates to people. So it was like one big thing. So this guy knew how to live in community with God. This guy was potentially on some levels like a professional Christian in some ways, and he is asking Jesus, who is my neighbor? Because, and don't miss this, he's wanting to justify himself. Justify, I looked it up, as a fancy word for excuse. He's got somebody in his head that he knows he should be serving, that he knows he should be loving, because he's supposed to love God, and he's probably got that down, at least in his mind, he's got that down. But when he says love others, he's like, oh, that's a tough one. Who's my neighbor, Jesus? Who's my neighbor? And there's somebody in there, and there's some people here today That you've got somebody in your path along that you should be serving? Whether you're 13, 33, or 310, there's somebody in your path that you should be serving. And this is a guy, he's making a justification. He's looking for the loopholes, because lawyers, can we just be honest? They're great for loopholes, right? That's his job. He's a professional loophole finder, and he's looking at Jesus, and he asks him a very, very pointed question. He says, who's my neighbor? This is awesome. Jesus says this. In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho. Okay, I love this about Jesus, because if you read it, and I looked this up one time, and I think this is right. Don't quote me on it totally, but I think Jesus never really answers questions directly. Like over all the 4 Gospels, I think he answers only 3 or 4 questions directly with an answer. Every time somebody asks Jesus a question, he always goes into stories. And so they're like, hey, Jesus, what about this? And he's like, okay, once upon a time, there were 3 little pigs, okay? And they just kind of go off to the right field. And you're like, that's not really what I answered at all right? But that's what he does. He's like, who's my neighbor? And Jesus is like, okay, story time, everybody. Huddle up. Okay, there's a man, and he went from Jerusalem to Jericho. Now, this is important. This is huge. Because I was doing some research on that trek this week and on that journey, and here's what I discovered. Jerusalem is sitting about 2,800 feet above sea level. Jericho is about 500 or so feet below sea level. It's 18 miles long. There's one road, it was called the Road of Blood, because of so many people were attacked, murdered, beaten, robbed. In between there, very few people traveled it, and it was incredibly dangerous. And so Jesus is telling the story, and he starts off his 3 little pig story. And he says, listen, here's the deal. There was a man, and he was going from God's blessing, Jerusalem, to Jericho, the curse. He was going from safety and security, high altitude, close to heaven, close to God, to this place that was cursed. If you read in the Old Testament, it says that when Jericho was destroyed, Joshua cursed it and said, the next man who builds a city, by his firstborn child's death, he will start the city, and by his seconds, he will put its gates on it. And sure enough, you read the story, that's exactly what happened. That is the whole story. And so Jesus starts the story, and everybody that was listening would have understood this is a guy who's walking from the presence of God into the presence of cursed, evil, death. This is not a good journey. This journey has something. And right now, here's what I would say. There's some people in this room right now. This is your story. You're not the lawyer. You're the stranger. You're the guy that is walking from God's blessing, from what God's give you, from your marriage, from financial security, from your church community, from your relationships, from all this, and you've got a plan, and you've got a weekend away, and you've got a person you're going to cheat on with, and you've got a situation you're going to go down, and you've got an addiction, you've got a sin pattern, whatever, and you are walking away from where God has you. And for some of you, it's planned, like you got it coming up. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. You're intentionally leaving the presence of God and walking away from him. That is your story this morning. The story goes on. When? I just want to pause. When you walk away from God, it is not a matter of if, but when you get hurt. It is not a matter of, I think I got this, because some of you, you're on the other side of your sin. You're on the other side, and you're this guy because he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. Like some of you, you're on the other side of that, and you're like, yeah, that's my story, Nick. I walked from God. It went terrible, and now I feel half dead, okay? But some of you, you're just starting the journey, and you've been okay so far, and you feel like, I'm getting away with it. No, I'm good. Hey, everybody told me not to date that person. I'm doing okay. Everybody told me that was a silly financial thing to do, that, I couldn't afford the payments, and, it probably wasn't the best, smartest move, but, I'm doing okay. You just need to understand, when you walk away from the presence of God, it's not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. Jesus writes this. He says, when he was attacked, he was left half dead. Because here's what happens. When we mess with sin and we walk away from God, what it strips us of our dignity. It strips us of our character. It strips us of our hope and our security and our future. And that's really what we lose. Oh, yeah, we might have lost a friend, but we lose so much more. There's people in this room, and there's situations that are going on that your character is changed in the eyes of other people because you left the presence of God. You left Jerusalem and you went to Jericho for a weekend or with a person or for a night. That's your story. That sin always strips us of what we hold most dear. And I just want to pause and say, if you're here today and you're on that journey and it has not hit you yet, please, for you, not for me, for you, turn around. It's not worth it, and it's only a matter of time. So Jesus is telling us a story. The guy who was on the road of blood gets attacked. He's half dead. He goes on. A priest who's a professional Christian, he'd be like a modern day pastor, a priest happened to be going down the same road. We're not sure why he was doing that. That's a different sermon probably. And when he saw the man, he passed on the other side. So the man of God, the priest, the person who actually has the position of healing, anointing, taking care of the spiritual, physical needs of the people, his people, the Jews, he looks at the situation and is like, oh, I don't want to deal with that. That's messy. And he avoids the situation. He goes around the situation. And if that wasn't bad enough, so too, a Levite. He wasn't quite as high as a priest, but a Levite was like a special people set aside. It's one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And again, their call was to provide for the spiritual and physical needs of the community. That was their position that they had to do. That's their job. That's their role. They are modern day, in some ways, Christians, but to a different level. They got some role, some position. When he came to the place and saw him, passed on the other side. They avoided the situation. They walked, they saw it. It wasn't they didn't see it. It wasn't they were oblivious. They saw a need, and they didn't do it. And everybody listening to that story at the time would have looked at that and went, oh, I can't believe that. That never happens. I've been thinking all week, that happens all the time in church worlds, right? It happens when somebody walks up to you or me and they tell you this horrible story about, like, yeah, we're down in our luck and we're struggling financially, or, we need some money for medication, or, we don't have enough food to eat, or whatever that situation is. And what do Christians say? Oh, yeah, we're so priesty. We look at people and go, oh, yeah, I'll be praying for you. I'm not going to do jack for you, okay? I'm not going to lift a finger. I'm not going to help you financially. I'm not going to serve you in any way. I'm not going to follow up. As a matter of fact, this conversation is making me uncomfortable, so I'm going to cut it off before I get too involved in it. Hey, man, that's terrible. I'll pray for you. Okay, bye. I'm going to go on the other side of the road right now. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. See it on Facebook. Thoughts and prayers. Okay, I'm all for prayer. That's cool. But if your prayer does not move you to action, then it's irrelevant. Prayer moves us, should drive us. That is the fuel. Prayer should be the fuel in the engine of our service towards other people. The churches are full of people. Oh, pray. And can I just be honest? I'm going to push a little bit. I'm going to meddle with you a little bit. Hey, just of all the times that you said you prayed for somebody, how many times did you really? Because you forgot. I'm not saying you didn't have good intentions. I'm just saying, like, I'll pray for you. And a week later, they're like, oh, thanks for praying. Okay, the scan was cleared. And you're like, yeah, I did. Oh, shoot, I forgot. Man, that was, yeah, praise God. You know what I mean? Like, come on, let's be honest. This is the person who's got the bumper sticker, the fish bumper sticker on it, okay? And they're driving, and they see the homeless person on the side with the sign that says, we'll work for food. And all of a sudden, your mind, you start to be the lawyer justifying it, going, I bet they deserve to be that way. I bet they did something, and I bet they're not even really homeless. I bet they're just scamming me and a whole deal. And we just kind of avoid it. We go to the other side. We lock the windows. We turn the music up. Whole deal. Like, we just look right ahead because we don't want to make eye contact. Like, don't, no. Everybody just no, look forward. Look left. Oh, hey, look at that. There's a star over there. You know what I mean? Like, just avoid it like crazy. Because it's so easy to justify our actions, right? It's so easy to impose upon somebody else their intents and their motives. It lets us off the hook of serving. I'm not saying that doesn't happen. I'm not saying that you don't get ripped off sometimes. I'm not saying there's not people out there scams. What I'm saying is, in some ways, does it matter? If they're in your path and they're a person with dignity, does it really matter? I think we justify so much of our lives. See, the crazy part about this is that guy was going down that path intentionally, and I believe that part of it was that they thought, he deserves this. He got what he deserved. And sometimes we walk over and we miss opportunities to serve other people because we've justified it and we said, yeah, they got what they deserved. I told them not to do that. I told them not to go there. I told them. And we miss it. It's the person who comes to church. This is a big one, man. It's the person who comes to church. Let's just say, I don't know, any church, like River Lake or something like that, And they come every single week. And this is their church, okay? If you're a guest here today, I'm not talking to you right now, all right? But if you've been here for like a couple months, okay, if somebody asked you, hey, what's your church? Like you would own it, like River Lake's my church. Hey, they come here every week, and they're so glad that there's a parking team, that men and women get here at 6:30 to set up and do sound production. They set up and do communion. That we have almost 1,000 feet of pipe and drape that you probably don't even notice a lot of times because they do such a good job of setting up and making it not notice. We got a kids minute. I mean, we have so many volunteers that serve every single week. You're so glad for that. But man, every time we talk about service and hey, would you go to culture training? Would you do this? Like, oh, wow, listen, I'm busy and I got kids. And Nick, you don't know how hard it is. I got 2 kids to get to church. And I'm like, wrong answer. I got 5. Top that, okay? Like we get here every week. We're fine, all right? I get you got kids. I don't care, all right? But we justify. We justify. Oh, I probably should serve. But what's serving really? And I wrote a check one time. And I did that one thing one time. And I served at that event one time. And where's your heart? Because here's what I know. These 2 people, they had the position. Okay? They had the role. They had that is their job. They should have served them. And if you're here today and you're a Christian, you are part of a body, whether you want to be or not. It says so in Scripture. New Testament talks about it all the time. And you were made to serve. And yet, too many times we choose an anemic lifestyle where we just show up and it's empty and it's lacking. And yet we wonder, why isn't my relationship with God stronger? Why don't I feel God's presence better? Something missing, and I'm not quite sure what it is. It's because you're acting against how you were created. So Jesus is telling the story. He goes on. He goes, but a Samaritan. Now, I just got to pause. Samaritans don't like Jews. Jews don't like Samaritans. So I want you to imagine in your world, who is the person that you don't like the most? I don't want to use the word hate, but you probably do, and that's okay. Okay? You can work on that later. But like, who is a person you're like, you see them, and all of a sudden, all the hair on the back of your neck stands up. That you see them, and you're like, you look at them, and you're like, nope, I'm not going there. Like you turn around and walk away. Who is that person? Okay? That's how Samaritan felt about Jews, and Jews felt about Samaritans. This would have been incredibly offensive to the Jews who are listening to the story. Because Jews should take care of Jews, especially the people with the position. A Samaritan, as he traveled, came where the man was. And when he saw him, he took pity on him. Pity comes from the heart. Pity comes from your disposition, not your position. And there's too many people that they're waiting for the right position. They're waiting for somebody to ask them. They're waiting for, I was never asked. It's not my responsibility. It's not my role. It's not my position. It's my whole deal. And yet God's saying, no. It's not about your position. It's not about that. It's about your disposition. In fact, here's what I would say. Some of you are waiting for a better position in your job. Here's what I know. You serve and you work hard enough right now, they'll promote you later. That's a problem. Way too many people are going, I would do better if they'd promote me. No, that's not how the word works. That's not how church works. You want a higher position in this church? Serve hard every week, show up, work hard, show that you got a great heart, everything like that. Listen, we'll promote you. That's not an issue. But too many people, they're waiting. They're waiting for the position. And Jesus is telling a story, and he's like, yeah. No. What really matters is not your position. It's not your role. It's your heart. How do you see other people? How do you see your enemies? How do you see the people on the side of the road? Is there ego? Is there selfishness? Is there busyness? Is it about me? Is it about other people? Because it has zero to do with your position in your world. It has zero to do with whether you're a Christian or not or whatever. It has everything to do with your heart. And the gospel has come to change our heart from a have to a get to. Because there's some people in here, and you're still arguing with me in your mind, and you're thinking, but I'm telling you right now, as you line yourself up with a story, you're the lawyer, you're justifying. You're the priest. I'm really busy. You're the Levite. Oh, it's messy. Because here's the deal. The priest and Levite, if they would touch a dead thing, and that guy was half dead, here's what would happen. They would spend 7 days having to be ceremonially clean. Mess. Take them out of their routine. Are you kidding me? Who's got 7 days? I'm busy. I got this whole thing. I don't have time for that. And she's like, you don't understand. That's not how I made you. You're living a thin, anemic life. It gets better, though. He goes on. He went into him and bandaged his wound, pouring on oil and wine. That would represent a spiritual aspect. Oil is anointing kind of deal. Wine would have been an accepted whole deal. But he's providing, again, for all the things that the priest should have provided for: the oil, the spiritual, the wine, the physical. Then he put the man on his own donkey, which means he probably got off. It was an 18-mile trek. This was not a simple thing. It was not a 5-minute thing. It was not a thoughts and prayers thing. And brought him to an inn and took care of him. Next verse. The next day he took out 2 denarii. It cost him financially too. Relationally, spiritually, his time, his energy, his finances, and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for extra expenses you may have. Listen, and not all the time, but when people call me, and every now and then we get phone calls, hey, I've got a friend who needs financial help. I want to look at him and go, yeah, what's your role then? Because this guy doesn't bring him up and go, hey, listen here, the innkeeper. I'm pretty sure that the nation's supposed to take care of this. There's some priests, there's some Levites, and that's their job. And so, listen, I got him here, okay? Just kind of call the local temple, call the local church, and they'll take care of the whole deal. I got to go. See you later. No, it's like, no, I got this. He understands. I'm the local church. Okay? If you're a Christian, you're the local church. I am not the church. Just so you know. The building is not the church. We are the church. And we are called to serve each other. And that doesn't mean there's a church we don't give away stuff and we're about ready to let hope in and give away thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Okay? But too often, we have this attitude of, I don't want it to be an inconvenience. I don't want it to bother me. Listen, if it's 5 minutes, I might do it. But you know what? Here, I'm going to let somebody else do it. And the Samaritan, the guy that had no position but had all the disposition in his heart, understands it's my role. So let me ask you, who is it you're called to serve? This past week, we had an interesting situation about positions in my house. See, when my wife leaves, okay, I don't know, maybe you guys are better than me, but when my wife leaves, I don't know what it is, but I feel like every single toy in our whole house somehow makes it into our living room. I'm not sure what happens with that, and they don't make it into our living room stacked nicely and neatly. It's like a nuclear bomb went off with all the toys in the world, and it's like poof, everywhere, you know? And so my wife left this week, and I always ask her, I'm always like, hey, baby, listen, before you come home, I just love you so much. Could you text me and let me know when you're coming home? And she's like, oh, that's so sweet. It's not sweet, okay? I'm going to let you in a secret because she's not in here today, okay? So here's what it really is. For me, it's like the, hey, code red, clean the house right now. Shove it under the couches, put it in the cabinets. We don't care where it is. Just clear the path, okay? Code, go. You know, it's like this mass scramble. We got 5 minutes, clean the house, you know? And again, maybe as a husband or whatever, like, you're better than me. I have no clue, but like, I'm a bad parent. I don't know what it is. But, you know, like my kids. And so we are doing this. Like Lisa had left. We were doing this mass scramble to clean up. And I look at Claire, and I'm like, hey, girl, I need you. Let's start cleaning up the toys and the books. She looks at me. I mean, doesn't miss a beat. And she's like, I didn't make this mess. I am like, girl, I made you. No, I didn't say that. What I was thinking is, are you kidding me? What? Like, your heart, you didn't make the mess. Like, you are a constant mess. You know how many stuff I picked up after you? But I looked at her, okay? I looked at her, and I'm like, do you know how many toys and books I picked up after you? And I'm trying to communicate and guilt her, okay? Because that's what good dads do, right? They guilt their kids into things, all right? You know, especially at an early age. Like, I want you to know this. And I'm expecting her to be like, you're so right, Father. I love you and Jesus. Let's pick it all up. You know, I'm waiting for that to happen, and it doesn't. Again, I love that girl. She has zero problem challenging me. She looks right back at me and goes, how many? I'm like, it's about to go on, okay? How many? I'll tell you how many, okay? And I looked right at her. I'm dead serious. I went, 1 billion to nothing. Now start cleaning, okay? And it was crazy because she looks at me, and here's what she was doing. And I think we do this with God. She's going, just like a stock market has a position financially, she's looking at me going, Dad, what's our position? What's our position? How many books have you picked up? How many toys have you picked up? Because I want to start working this down. Okay, so you picked up 12 books for me? Cool. I'll pick up 12 books. What's our position? And I feel like we do that with God all the time. We see an opportunity to serve somebody else. Instead of understanding it's a get to, instead of a have to, we start to evaluate our lives and we start to evaluate what's our position, God. How good have I been this week? How much money have I given away this week? How much time have I served other people this week? Am I a good person? Am I bad? God, what's our position? And we miss that we were called, that we were made, that you were designed to serve other people. And it's not about a have to. It's not about your position, but it's about what you get to do in your relationship with God. This story ends. This story ends with Jesus looking at the whole crowd. And he says, you know what? Who do you think was the man's neighbor? And of course, everybody's convicted and probably a little angry because they would never want to admit that a Samaritan, that evil person, that terrible person in our world was actually good to somebody, because we characterize people so much, don't we? We just characterize them in one way and we can never see the positive in them. And they kind of go, oh, Samaritan. And Jesus is like, yeah, you go and do likewise. So my question is, who's in your path? Who's in your path right now? Don't tell me your excuses. Don't tell me all your problems. Don't tell me where you're at financially. Don't tell me how busy you are. Don't tell me how many kids you got. Don't tell me any of that kind of stuff like that, okay? All you need to know is who's in your path. Because I know it's an interruption, and I know it's a big deal. And I know it might cost you financially, and I know it might cost you relationally. I know it might cost you a whole bunch more than you're willing to give up, but you were made for that. Because see, I've been thinking all week about what is the tension? Why do we not do this? What prevents us from walking through life how we were made, full? I so want to eat this right now. Full, I got to just get it away, okay? Just, Satan, get behind me, okay? We're going to put this right there. Okay, cool, yeah. Full, what prevents us from doing that? Here's what I think it is. I think it starts when we're younger. Because when I was younger, my dad was an amazing dad. He coached me so well. We did a lot of sports. And he would always look at me and he would drill into me. He would say, Nick, you sacrifice today. You have behaviors, disciplines today. Why? Because there's a blessing on the other side. And so I grew up in a world where, listen, the blessing came after the behavior. That there was some stuff he wanted me to do over and over and over again. And I learned that. And if you do sports, you know what I'm talking about, right? Like you can see the kids that work hard and go to practice every day and have the right discipline, what happens? They win later. There's a blessing after the behavior. And we know that as adults, right? You save money every day. Okay, it's a behavior. Guess what happens? Later on, you get a boat and you invite your pastor out on it. It's going to be a great day, okay? There's a blessing for you and me. It's going to be awesome, okay? There's a blessing after the behavior, though. Seriously, you eat healthier. You go to the gym more. It's a behavior, right? And not immediately, not at that day, but there's a blessing after the behavior. We learn that. We know that. And I think the problem for Christians is this. We grew up in that world, and so we think serving, and we look at it, and we're thinking, okay, where's the blessing? Where's the, listen, I know the behavior, okay, they want me to get here at 6:30 in the morning. We don't need people to get here at 6:30 in the morning. I mean, everybody at least. But, they want me to get here early. You want me to go rake my neighbor's leaves? Are you kidding me? I'm so tired. When I get home, it's already half dark. You want me to give to that foundation, that person? You want me to do that? Like, where is my blessing? Because if you're like me, you grew up in a world where the blessing came after the behavior. But it hit me this week. The blessing's in the behavior. And the reason we can't see the blessing is because we keep looking for afterward. We keep thinking about what we're going to get in return afterward. And what I have discovered is with service, with God's economy, it's not about the after, but it's about the in. Because if I know anything about you, you're like me. And man, you are narcissistic and ego-driven, okay? Like I just call out everybody in here and I'm fine with it, all right? You'll get over it, okay? But you have an ego. You've got your self-interest. You're about you. Can we just admit that? Like, how many of you, come on, honestly, if there's one cookie left and your kids there, how many of you eat it anyway, right? Like, you're like, I paid for those cookies, okay? That's my cookie. I don't care if it's a thin cookie. I'm still taking the last cookie, okay? There's every one of us, we have a selfish, kind of ego-driven, it's about me kind of mentality. Here's the deal. The blessings and the behavior. Because as you serve, what happens is God starts to transform. The gospel starts to change you inside, and your narcissism goes away. Your ego starts to get killed. All the things that are inside of you that you would say, yeah, that's not good, it's not healthy, it's actually keeping me down, it's keeping me away. God starts to use that service in you. It starts to kill what's evil. It starts to change you on the inside. Because the blessing doesn't come after the behavior all the time. Sometimes it does. But for all of us, the blessing's always, always, always in the behavior. God wants to transform you. He wants to change you, not your external, but your internal. And so like tonight, Candy Jam, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. You're going to be really cold. That's what's going to happen, okay? No, I'm just kidding. Now you're going to stand out there, and you're going to freeze for 3 hours. And you're going to hand out candy, or you're going to run. I found out earlier yesterday that I'm a gopher. Oh, that's great. Not my costume, that's my role, okay? It's kind of degrading, actually, a little bit, you know. I wish my costume was a gopher, but it's not. But we're going to run, hand out candy, serve people, invite people to church, do the whole thing. And we're going to, you know what your reward is? You know what your blessing is after the event's going to be? A 14-hour nap. That's what it's going to be, because you're going to be exhausted, all right? Let me tell you what else is going to happen. You're going to see kids' faces light up who may not get any other candy because their moms won't let them go out or because it's going to rain Tuesday night. You're going to serve kids who get to go to Ralphie's, and it happens every single year, and it breaks my heart every single year because at least 2 or 3 families will walk up to me or another volunteer and thank us. Why? Because they could never afford to bring their whole family to Ralphie's and let them play laser tag or let them go bowling or let them go skating. That's worth all the time. That's the blessing. That's the payoff. And it doesn't come after. It comes in the midst of it. And those moments change me. And they can change you. They can change your heart. They can change not your external, but your internal. And as long as you don't avoid it, as long as you don't run away from it and go, I got excuses, as long as you don't justify it, God's got a blessing for you. God's got a blessing for you. But it's in the behavior. The blessing's in the behavior, not afterwards. So I want to end it with this. Who are you? Are you the lawyer, the priest, or the Levite? Professional Christian. Everybody knows it. But you don't really serve. Because you got a job, or you got financial constraints, or you got kids, or you got some issues with, you know, your health or whatever, and just whole deal. And it sounds good. And at the end of the day, only God knows your heart. I mean, that's between you and Jesus. Like, I'm never one-on-one going to make anyone feel guilty. Because I believe the blessing's for you, not us. I believe when you serve this church, it's about you, it's not us. So are you that person, and do you need to step up? Do you need to start serving here in some way? Because this is your church? Or is there somebody else in your path? Maybe it's a legitimate neighbor. Like, they're not your next-door neighbor, but they're like your neighbor of a neighbor. And you're called to serve them. You're called to rake their leaves, mow their lawn. You're called to maybe pay a bill off that you know about, that they're struggling. And it's not a big deal to you because financially you're really secure, but you can afford $110 to pay off their electricity bill or their gas bill or their water bill, and you're like, hey, I got it. It's getting Christmas time. My wife told me I can't say that, but I don't care what you say. It's getting Christmas time, okay? So, like, hey, have a great Christmas. I don't know who's in your path. What I do know is you are uniquely positioned like no one else to serve them. And it's not about you. For some of you, you're not serving people because you're not saved. And so there's a tension, like I'm talking, but you're the guy, you're the woman who's going from Jerusalem to Jericho. Like you're on this path, and you maybe you feel half dead. Maybe you feel like you've been robbed of your dignity, your grace, your mercy, your future. I don't know. Maybe you're here today and you feel that and you have no future. Can I just tell you right now, we started this church for you. This whole church is for you. Every single week we come together for you. Because we as a church, there's about 50 of us, we got together and said, listen, we have no positions and no one's wanting to promote us. But man, do we have a passion. Man, do we have people in our path. And man, are our hearts, do we have a disposition towards the lost and the broken, the half dead, the messed up? Because we know every single one of us has been there too. And so for some of you today, you need to respond to the gospel. You need to give your life to Christ for the first time and acknowledge, you know what, I'm no good at this. I can't do this. I've been running from God, and I need to, for the first time, just go from living this anemic, empty life to life, to the full. I want to invite our ushers to come forward for our time of communion. As they come forward, there's a verse that I was sitting with this week, and it's this one right here. It's Matthew chapter 20. And it says this, it says, Jesus talking, it says, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. There's some power in that word slave. There's a whole bunch of stuff and junk that comes with that. Jesus kind of owns it. He says, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served. It's not about you. It's not about your stuff. It's not about your plans. It's not about your future. It's not about your finances. It's not about you, what you want to do. It wasn't about what Jesus wanted to do. He didn't come down and go, I'm king, but to serve. And then to go further and to give his life as a ransom for many. See, the gospel is this, that no matter where you're at, no matter what you've done, no matter your past, your present, or your future, there's a God who loves you and cares for you and does so much that he died for you so that you could be different on the inside. That all the have-tos go from that to a get-to. The gospel transforms and changes us as we believe in him, as we trust in him, as we pursue him, as we sacrifice our own desires and our own stuff and our own issues and fall more and more and more in love with who he is and what he has done for us. When we quit evaluating the position of the relationship and we start allowing God to change the disposition of our heart. And so I'm going to pray here in a few moments. And we're an open church. If you're a guest here today, you can partake of communion with us. I just want you to answer one question. What's your next step? What's your next step? Maybe it's to give your life to Christ, and today you need to make a decision because it always starts with a decision. And you can make that decision. You make it in your heart with God, and I want you to symbolize that by taking some communion and recognizing the life, death, and resurrection of Jesus. And you owning that. And if you do that, I want you to also put it on a Connect card and let us know. We'd love to follow up with you. But for some, it's you've got somebody in your path that you don't need to serve. You need to give something to. You need to step into their world. You've been avoiding the phone calls. You've been avoiding the emails. You've been avoiding it like crazy, and you need to do that. Or for some of you, it's just you need to step in and serve in the church because you're a part of the church and you've been running from that and you've not been engaged. And you've had a lot of excuses. You've had a lot of justifications. But you know what? Today, God's working in you and you're convicting you. And when you reflect on all that he sacrificed for you, the little that he's asking you to sacrifice right now doesn't seem like so much. Would you pray with me? Heavenly Father, thank you so much for sending your son. Thank you that it was a get to, not a have to. Pray that you would speak to us in the next few moments, convict in our hearts. Help us walk out of here different because of who you are, changed because of what you've done. Help us believe and embrace the gospel, to quit making excuses, to quit justifying, but to be the church. We love you and thank you so much. Amen.
You give life, you are love, you bring lights to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord. It's your breath